So, you want to be a lightsaber installer. You got detention. No, a lot of questions that I've gotten recently is, hey, I want to start installing lightsabers and offering it as a service. I want to start building lightsabers. I want to sell them. I love the hobby. I really want to get into it, and I want to start doing it myself. And I fully support all DIY builders. I think it's the funnest aspect of this hobby. Collecting is fun and it's really cool, but really where it shines is when you start getting your hands dirty and building them yourself. So what I want to do is I want to talk a little bit about installers. I've mentioned some before, and again, I apologize if I didn't mention them all. There are plenty, especially now. There are quite a few out of the woodworks come in to the lightsaber hobby and start building lightsabers. So if I don't mention everyone, I'm sorry. I will try my best to mention a lot of different people and whatnot. But really what I want to talk about more so is what it takes to become one of them. To be somebody in the community who, 1, has a good reputation, 2, does quality work, and 3, has good customer service, because there's a lot of variables, just like anything in this hobby, that are going to make it a little difficult for you to maintain. I guess, I don't know if that's the best word to use. First of all, number one, do not practice on your customers' hilts. No. One thing you really want to do is, if you're just starting out, you're going to need to realize that you have to do a lot of homework. You need to know things, obviously. There's a term out there that has been used for years. Happens a lot. Every couple of years we get them. There's a term that we use for people called Instasmiths. That's pretty much what everyone calls it. An Instasmith is somebody who comes into the community, does one lightsaber build, and then goes, I'm open for business. It's time. Give me your money and your lightsabers, and here I go. And then they either crash and burn miserably, which, you hope that never happens to anybody. Yeah, and then they just leave entirely because, 1, you burned your name. It's easy to do. That's what I'm going to talk a little bit about also, your reputation. One thing you have to do, you absolutely have to do, is you have to have experience. You have to have a portfolio. You have to have proof that you've got a lot of hilts built under your belt. You have to, a lot of builds that you've done. You have to have a bit of knowledge. You're going to have a lot of people asking you questions. I get a lot of people asking me questions, and I'm not exactly a guru. I don't know how I got to this position. I don't know how I got here. People forced me into doing this. The thing that you're going to have to do is you're going to have to practice on your own stuff. I'm serious when I say this. You will be blacklisted like that if you start taking on a lot of that stuff that you don't know anything about, and you're just playing it by ear, playing somebody's hard-earned money by ear. You're basically toying with somebody's investment for their collection. It's a big no-no. I suggest to everyone, it sucks, but you have to get a lot of hilts yourself. Build them. One way you can go about this is you can start taking on, you can buy some hilts for yourself, right? Get the experience in building them and then sell them. There's nothing wrong with that. Be very upfront with what it is. Be like, hey, Profi Saber, I built it. Here's the specs, here's the pictures, show your wiring, show everything, and be very upfront with what it is. And then just keep on turning them out that way. That way you're not, building a huge collection like me or something like that. That way you get the experience and you're still maintaining a flow of sabers and money. So you're not spending a lot of money because you're buying the parts and buying the hilt and doing the install and getting the experience, selling it, getting your money back, moving on to the next build until you build up a portfolio of work. Then, people will start to say, oh, hey, this guy's done 50 hilts, 100 hilts. This guy's done a lot of work. And then, your reputation has been built. That's just how it goes. One of the safest ways I could say, into tiptoeing into it if you haven't already, is to start building lightsabers. You have to get the experience. If you were to go to a tattoo artist and he was like, yes, I tattooed myself and my cousin, check out these sweet tats. And then you're like, okay, here's $1,000. And he's like, all right, let's do it in my garage. And he starts tattooing you in your garage. Now I know I'll probably get a lot of hate for a lot of people who are like, tattoos in the garage are okay. No, dude, I'm going to go somewhere where the guy's like, here's my portfolio. I'm going to flip through his book. And I'm going to go, oh my gosh, all of his artwork is amazing. And he's got so much, and there's proof. And he is in an office, and he's got gloves, and he's cleaning the surface, and a tattoo artist. I'm not going to get, cutting corners on something when you're buying art. Keep that in mind. You have to have some form of, yes, I've done that, here's proof. So that's something that you really want to build. You got to build up on that, and then it'll help you with your knowledge. I have a very firm rule. There's a few rules I have. A very, very firm rule. I do not, again, practice on anybody's stuff. If somebody's really asking me, like as far as Profi builds go, I never really tiptoed into Profi boards that much because there's a lot of variables that can go wrong in the customer service aspect. Say you do a Profi build for somebody, and then you're like, all right, here it is, and the person's like, oh no, I tried to switch things and I messed up the code, I deleted it, backed up, like how do I fix it? And then you have to be like, oh, let me figure it out with you. It's not good, it doesn't look good. So you definitely want to be proficient in what you are providing, which again is why I stick to CFX and Golden Harvest and Nanos and whatever, because I know those boards and they're easier to walk somebody through. And that's not saying Profi is like the hardest thing in the world, but I have, like I said, that's something I don't offer. I try to keep things simple for everyone because I want a good experience all around. So I think in the future I will be maybe doing some Profi builds for people, but again, not until I've practiced enough on my own terms and I have a lot of confidence in it. And even then, I'll probably still be hesitant. Like, I don't know if I really want to get into a complicated build. So that being said, yes, you need experience and you need knowledge. So you need knowledge of companies. You're going to need to learn a lot of different areas to get things. You're going to need to know, whether it's the Custom Saber Shop, KR Sabers, builders of all kinds that can provide different services. If you want to be a one-man shop, you're going to have all the skills, whether it's powder coating, etching, acid etching, 3D printing, which is something I would really like to get into. That would help out a lot because as of right now, I have to outsource 3D printed parts for people. I'm okay, we need to get you a chassis. Boom, I need to find somebody. Jeremy at Solo Sabers is a good example of this, as well as some others like Rob and a couple other people. They have the ability to design and 3D print their chassis themselves. So they, Jeremy can pump out left and right, which he does. He's a machine. That guy's a machine. He pumps out commissions all the time because he's a one-man show. He can do it all in-house, and that's just awesome. So there's a ton of skills you're going to have to learn. You're going to have to learn, obviously, your soldering. You're going to have to get a good soldering kit. There's a bunch of good soldering irons. I'm sure you ask anybody. I'll leave some pictures of. There's pretty much any soldering kit will do as long as it's ESD safe. You don't want to fry anything. There's levels of them. There's great soldering irons. You can go crazy on that. Personal preference. I use one of the first ones I ever got. I have a nicer one and I still use my Lucky soldering iron. So whatever works for you as long as it's safe and gets the job done properly and cleanly. So you're going to need to learn your supplies. You're going to need to know parts. You're going to need to know, different vendors, companies, hilts. You're going to have to just gain a massive amount of knowledge. The more you know, the better. You got your soldering iron. You got some hilts. You got some experience. What you're going to need to do is you're going to start low end, man. You're going to have to, this is my thing. I think it's pretty much what everyone should do for the most part. When you start taking people's money, start your first couple commissions at a lower cost than you plan on. It's not forever, but I'm saying start at like a lower price that's fair, but you don't want to overcharge out the gate, especially because that can backfire on you. Again, this is all a learning process. You eventually start to figure out what your time is worth. Everyone charges different. At the beginning, I had a lot of people who were like, dude, you're charging next to nothing for your installs. And I was like, yeah, but I wanted to help a lot of people get something that they really liked, and I didn't mind doing it. Over time, my prices have gone up because, it takes a lot of time to do these builds. It all varies, man. And that's just something that you're going to have to ask around. If people will tell you their prices or whatnot, then that's, that's cool. But you'll find out relatively early on what people are willing to pay for. Because some people will be like, "Okay, how much? Cool, man, I'll get back to you." And it's dead silence. So you're going to have to, dance with that, ask around, find somebody and say, hey man, what do you usually charge? Depending on difficulty of board, because there's so many services, it all racks up. So you got, find what you would charge for etching, what you would charge for install, what you would charge for customization, weathering, so on and so on. That's something that you really need to factor in, or you're going to have a lot of people. It's still hard for me. A lot of people ask me how much, and I'm like, oh man, we got to figure this out. We got to get to the bottom of what you want first. Once you do that and you start pumping out work, show your work. Show your work. Post pictures, videos. When you're taking a picture of your lightsaber, put some effort into, clean the background of the, like if you're gonna take glam shots, don't have a McDonald's cup in the background and your dirty underwear. Make sure the background looks good. Make sure it's good lighting. Make sure you show a bunch of different angles. This is your artwork. This is what you are building. You want it to look good. You got all that down. You've learned as much as you can about lightsaber building. You've learned as much as you can about businesses, hilts, businesses that sell hilts or DIY products, 3D printing, chassis, components. There's a lot of stuff that you're going to have to gain the knowledge on. It's a big no-no to just dive in and say, I'm open for business. And then someone's like, okay, man, I want this and that. And you're like, sure. And then you take it on and you just screw the pooch. And then you don't have any way of fixing that error. A lot of times components can go bad. I've had a couple boards that were from the factory in commissions, brand new boards sent to me, wired it up, and LEDs were fried. Everything else on the board worked fine, but it wasn't because you have to learn how to test things. That's another thing. Troubleshooting is what I should probably talk about next. But I had to figure out what was wrong with it, and eventually it was, faulty components on the board, and we needed a replacement board. So either I front the bill, because it could come down to that person being like, you messed it up. This is all your fault. And you being like, I did everything how it should be. Board's faulty. So that's another thing. You need to be able to fix something if it's broken and it's your fault. A lot of times people will take on, if I'm flat broke, if I have no money, and I'm like, sure, I'll take on your $1,000 commission, and then it goofs and that person's like, I'm tired of this, I want my $1,000 back now. And you're like, I already spent it on things I needed. I don't have anything to give you back. You are hosed. Your reputation is now screwed. People are going to be mad at you, and they're going to go, there's a lightsaber call out resources. There's a page dedicated to people who are like, here's my experience with this guy. This is what he did, and this is what happened. It's terrible. Stay away. All it takes is a few people to say, hey man, that guy's awful, and it will be hard for you to stay afloat. It's just, it's the nature of it. You wouldn't want to go back to the same used car salesman who sold you 2 or 3 awful cars that broke down. You'd go somewhere else. You want to be able to fix things. You're going to need to learn how to do repairs. You're really going to need to learn how to troubleshoot, because if something's wrong and you don't know how to fix it, now you need somebody else's help. You are no longer the specialist. So if it could be anything, I can't tell you how much troubleshooting I've done building lightsabers over the years, of me being like, maybe it's a bad speaker. Nope. Maybe it's a bad recharge port. Nope. Maybe it's a bad battery. It was a bad battery. The battery is shot out of the factory. It was dead. Can't recharge, and it won't do anything. Maybe polarity happens, something. Swap out the battery and we're fine. You have to go down a checklist. Usually whenever you're building your saber, test everything as you go. Test the lights, test the switches, test the sound, test the speaker, test everything as you go. So that way if something messes up, you can go, okay, well, before we got to this step, this was working. So it's got to be somewhere around here. So you have to learn how to troubleshoot. There's all that. And then there's also going back to being able to fix a problem and having the money to do it. I do not take money up front. I think it's a big no-no. I've seen it a lot. I've seen a lot of people. I paid him $1,200 a year ago in no saber, and he won't refund me. He spent that $1,200 a year ago. Now I'm just at the mercy of, hopefully I get the lightsaber or he gives me a refund, because a lot of people are shady and they will say, yes, I will build that for you, pay me. And then you will pay them PayPal, and then they will wait the 6 months. That's a safety blanket for you to get your money back. And then they will go, oh, sorry. And then you can't file a claim because the time has lapsed. So now you are screwed. Also, never pay friends and family. That you have no protection on PayPal. Somebody asks you to do that, say, no, thank you. That is a red flag. You want to pay goods and services. So that way, if something does go wrong, you can recoup your money, file a claim, go through the actions and make it right. But there's a lot of variables. So you have to take this in. When you're doing lightsaber commissions for people, this is the one thing that is hard for me to see in the community. I'm building a lightsaber for you. I want it to be better. It would be the same type of quality that would be in my personal collection. Every build I do, I want to be better than my last build. I want everything to improve. So when I'm building you something, I want it to be a good experience. I want you to have fun in the process. I want you to have input in the process. This is your lightsaber that I'm doing for you. So communication. If your installer has poor communication, he's going to get blasted. You have to have good communication with your people. Hey man, ordered the part, it's going to be a couple weeks. Here's the tracking, yada yada. Or going back to taking money up front. I don't take money up front. I will take money for parts, but like that's when I've made a list, screenshot, checkout. Here's what you owe, man. You can PayPal me the money now, and I will buy it now, or you can purchase it and just send it to my address. Either one. You definitely have to find what works, but if I could give any advice, it would be do not take the money up front unless it's for parts. Because then worst case scenario, hey, I can't finish your lightsaber commission, death in the family, lost my job, moving, I thought I could take on your build, I can't. Here's all of your stuff back that you've paid for. Sorry, I won't be able to finish it. So there's a lot of that. Just got to be safe, be smart when you're taking on commissions. It's not it's not easy, man. It's not easy to juggle. And that's going to get to my next thing, which I don't know, is that number 3 or number 4? I don't know. In these videos, I kind of ran, obviously. The next thing is going to be your commission log. I do not take on more than a few lightsaber commissions at a time. So this is going to be this section will kind of be a little bit to talk about being a customer. Like, customers need to understand what an installer goes through, and then also as an installer what you should take on. I only take on about 5 commissions at a time. You're gonna juggle a lot. You're gonna have to, because parts, unless somebody's like, hey man, I bought the whole kit, the soundboard, the chassis, the speaker, battery, lights, everything's ready to go in this box, I just need you to build it for me because I don't know how. Then awesome. But a lot of times it's, hey man, I got this kit, the CFX is out of stock for right now. We don't know when that'll be in. I don't have a chassis yet. You have all these parts moving, and it's like, okay, well, let's go ahead and lock this person in, and we'll get the parts as we go. I mean, I'll have people who are like, hey man, this finally came in, I'm sending it your way. And I'm like, okay, so cool. I will have a commission that lasts like 2 months or something like that, because we're waiting on parts. We're waiting on getting this. The hilt hasn't come out yet. The battery's out of stock for some reason. So there are variables in that. So if I were to say take on every commission that came through my inbox, which a lot of people ask me to do, I'm sorry guys, I can't take all commissions at the same time. I'm a one-man show. So people like Jeremy, like I was saying, he can pump them out like crazy. Jeremy, you're a machine. I know, but that's something that you are gonna have to keep in mind, because this happened to a bunch of installers back in the day. A very infamous person, Jordan Mall, to name one, took on so many commissions, and he got avalanched by them. And we're talking lawsuits, we're talking thousands that he couldn't get back to people. I mean, could you imagine having to pay back $20,000 or $30,000 to different people because you didn't finish the work that you took money from? Whew, it would suck. So if I take on 10 commissions and I got one person who's like, hey man, it's been a couple weeks, like where's it at? Every day in my inbox, hey dude, you said it would be done in a month, it's been 2. And then I'm like, oh crap. Then you put a lot of useless stress on you, put stress on the build, then you have to explain, then you have to spend your time that you have answering these emails all the time. I mean, if I answered all the questions every day on my inbox, I'm spending a good bit of time sitting at my desk answering comments, which I try to answer everyone's comments. I try to answer everyone's messages. I don't want anyone thinking I'm ignoring them. A lot of times I'm like, oh crap, okay, let me carve out time to answer messages. There's a lot that goes into it that you need to factor in. How much time can you spend building lightsabers? Can you spend a whole day doing it? Can you spend a whole day, Monday through Friday, building 4 lightsabers a day? That sounds awful. It sounds like way too much for me. For me, it's an escape. It's fun. I like to build, but I build a saber. It could take me a couple hours to do one saber. That's just how I do it. That's how I work. I know my limits. I know what I'm capable of as far as building. That's something that I'm like, okay, I know I can handle a couple a month. That's fine. And I keep it that way. If you allow yourself to get in money's good, I like the inflow of money, let's take on 2 or 3 more commissions. Can you take on 2 or 3 more commissions though? So you just have to know. Everything you're gonna have to do, you're gonna have to feel out. You have to be really careful on not blacklisting yourself by making any of these mistakes. It's a thing to say, this community, if you mess up, it's really hard to dig out of that hole. If you have created a bad name for yourself and you didn't redeem it, you didn't make it right, and people didn't forgive you, it's going to be really hard for you to climb out of that hole. You don't want to be in any hole. There are so many things I can keep talking. This can be an hour-long video of me saying, hey, here's tips and tricks on being an installer. Personally, I don't know how I ended up being labeled an installer. I had people who were, I built my lightsabers for myself. I'm a DIY builder. I love it. That's my favorite aspect of the hobby. I built my sabers, and I had friends who were like, hey, can you build me one? And I was like, absolutely. Let's just, do this and that. Then I had somebody go, hey man, can you build me one? And I was like, you know what? Yeah, sure, man. You seem like a cool dude. And then eventually people just kept on asking me to build stuff. And for some reason, I'm an installer. I never classified myself as one. I never signed up for any of this, man. It's one of those things where I have been in the hobby and the community for years, and I've done a lot of work. I've done a lot of sabers. I've built a lot over the years, and I put a lot of passion into it. But people just assumed I was an installer. I mean, that's what I'm saying. You have to get to that way. So if I would have just jumped in and been like, hey guys, here I am, I'm taking commissions, every single person would have been like, who are you? Where did you come from? What have you done? What do you know? You have to prove yourself. So get a lot of sabers, build a lot of sabers, go to town, take in all information you can. I still constantly watch videos and learn, trying to take on as much as I can about Profi. I got a Profi build I'm going to do for my personal saber, and I'm going to see if that's something that I really enjoy. Again, like I said, I never really tiptoed into Profi because it was not something I wanted to offer to people. Nothing against Profi. I think it's a fantastic board. It's just, in my opinion, from what I've seen, it seems like something that would create a lot of problems customer-wise. So it's not an easy board for somebody who doesn't know how to read an SD card to get and play with. If something goes wrong, they need to have a little bit of knowledge. It's a higher, it's more tech savvy than a plug and play saber. Get a lot of work done. Get your tools, learn your tools, soldering, flux. You need flux. Flux is great. Make sure you know your wire gauges. Batteries and LEDs take a certain wire gauge. You want like a 22 gauge wire for anything battery recharge port. Your LEDs, if you're doing NeoPixels, you'll want a 22 gauge wire for your positive and your negative. Unless you're doubling up, I like to double up on most of the wires. I don't know why, just because I got to split off the two negatives anyways usually. So I'll use two 24 gauge wires, which two 24 gauge wires is basically a 22 and a 22 in a way. Learn your wire management, learn your cleanliness. People are going to look at these installs that you do, and if it's a rat nest and a bunch of hot glue and nasty looking stuff, you are not going to get repeat customers. You are not going to get a very good image. Clean installs, clean work, learn what you can, and continue to evolve your craft. Constantly learning, constantly changing, constantly getting better. There are plenty of installers out there. If you're looking for some, I made a list on how much is a lightsaber video. There are plenty. You've got, like I said, Jeremy is a full-time Solo Sabers LLC. Jeremy. You got Shane Moore from Sith Lord Sabers. He's full-time. He does a lot of stuff, a lot of good work. You got plenty of guys out there. I can list tons. I actually don't know a lot of them. I mean, most of the times there's so many new ones. I'm like, oh, I didn't know this person was a company. There's plenty. Carlos from Kessel Customs, good friend. And of course, you've also got the guys at Smugglers Outpost, which are a bunch of friends of mine. Albert Flores, those crazy guys. There's a lot of installers over there too. So there's plenty of installers all over. You just have to ask around, and I guarantee you, if they're good, they have a good reputation. There are people who are full-time installers. RGV Custom Sabers, they got a couple guys that are full-time. I mean, the thing is, like, you come and go. I'm not a full-time installer. I like to build a lot, but when I consider full-time is somebody who is able to pump out hilts every day, weeks on end, 24/7. People out there who are customers listening to this or thinking about it, go easy on your installers. It's not, you know what I mean? There's a lot to juggle. So when you're sitting there and you're going, man, it takes forever to get an install from some people, they might have a lot of things going on in their lives. It may not be there 9 to 5. I mean, there's a lot that goes into building, and I take my time. I'm not, like I said, I don't pump them out fast, so I'm not on par with that level. And I like it. I like to chill and build. I don't want to be a factory assembly line type building sabers, pumping it out just to make a profit. Most of the time, profit is not really in my mind for a lightsaber build. I want the best lightsaber build I can do. I'm not really thinking about, I gotta do this so I can get that chunk of change, that sweet cheddar. And if I do, it's usually because I'm like, I need that money to buy my lightsaber stuff. So it's just, there's a lot of variables in it. I hope this isn't too much of a rambling video. I mean, there's a lot I can talk about when it comes to sitting down and saying, all right, I want to be a custom lightsaber installer. But if you follow a lot of what I've said, you'll do fine. It is not that hard. I mean, I kind of got shoehorned into doing this. Like I said, I accidentally became an installer, so don't do that. No, what I'm saying is do your homework, get your experience, get your reputation built up, build sabers, have fun with it. Hopefully a lot of what we just talked about was somewhat informative and helpful to you guys. I know I ramble a lot and I try to talk about every different aspect I can think of, and I miss a lot of stuff too. These are just a few things that'll help you get started. You know, everyone's got a different path when it comes to doing this. Those are a few things that I think can help you along the way of becoming an installer, if that's something that you want to do. And I know I said like 3 things, but it ended up being like 9. But you're welcome for all the free lessons, I guess. Thank you guys very much for watching. I hope this was what you were asking for, maybe some questions you didn't think about. Throw them in the comment section. We'll be happy to answer them for you there. Thanks again, you guys. Happy building, and may the force be with you.
Who's scruffy looking?